Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Hutchison. I'm the manager of online instructional design here at the Academy at NHSA. Welcome to today's final webinar in our series about tackling challenging behaviors. Today, we are going to discuss uh, respect and its role in the classroom, particularly when dealing with behaviors that challenge us. So that's going to be a really interesting conversation. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Everyone is on mute, so that's because there's a lot of you. So please do put your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout. And if there's time, we'll also have time for some Q&A at the end. We are recording this session, and the recording and all the resources that we talk about will be available to you in a follow-up email. So keep an eye out for that. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Dr. Deb Bergeron, known fondly to all of us here as Dr. B, who is our Deputy Director of Innovation and Community Engagement, teaches our Trust First Classroom Management series, and of course was the former director of the Office of Head Start, among so many other things. An absolute asset to our team. Welcome, Dr. B. And Ron Schwally, who is the founder of the Behavior Mastery Method of Classroom Management. He will also be at our national conference next week. So if you're there, be sure to stop by his sessions and say hi. And so much more we could say about Ron, but we don't want to take our time talking about ourselves. We're going to talk about respect. And we're going to respect your time as a starter. So I'm going to go start with Dr. B. And the question that we want to tackle first is a little bit like high level philosophical. What does it mean to have respect at the heart of your classroom? Go for it, Dr. B.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And it's thrilling to be here for our final session of this 6-part series. And probably worth opening with a note that over 4,400 early Head Start and Head Start folks registered for these webinars. I think that speaks highly to the need for this kind of support. We hear you loud and clear, and we're going to make sure we continue doing work around this space for you. This has been absolutely fun for me. I have enjoyed every single one of these sessions, and I keep my eye on the chat the whole time, so don't be afraid to ask questions. I pull them out. So let's talk about respect and how that plays a part in trust first and what we might call effective classroom management. But really, at the end of the day, it's finding joy in the work of teaching and being in the classroom. And we can't be joyful in the classroom if we're always struggling with behaviors that challenge us. We have to master that in order to get to that joyful space. A big part of Trust First centers around the word we really use is love. We actually talk about respect and love interchangeably with a belief that when we love somebody, when we show love for each other, we respect each other. It's all very intertwined. The word respect has such subjective meaning. It's really important that as we talk about this and we think about how do we use these concepts to actually change our classrooms and change how we present in the classroom, and therefore how we respond to all of the stuff going on in the classroom, that we have definitions that are consistent. Super interesting. If you open up the question to kiddos and say, what does the word respect mean? You're going to hear all different kinds of answers. So it's important as teachers, instructional assistants, folks working with kids, that we define it for them based on what we expect so that everyone's aware of what we mean when we use the word respect. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about what that looks like and what you can take back to your classrooms today. We always like to give you a party favor that you can use tomorrow. And I'm going to have some for you in just a minute, but I'm going to turn it over to Ron, who's going to talk about how respect interweaves into the program that he teaches related to classroom management.
Awesome. Love it. Yay, we're back. I came from a preschool martial arts world. So for me, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, following instructions, that was just the initial part. That was the difference between working at a dojo and in a classroom where respect was the ground building work of it. And in a traditional preschool classroom, respect sometimes is optional. The most important thing that I found when it comes to running a beautifully effective and loving classroom full of respect is, number one, have respect for the kids. And I've met people that say, I'm not going to show them respect until they show me respect. And they're busy being right, and they're busy getting dopamine in their body, and the connection between that child isn't there. What if you started with, I respect every single one of these kids. I respect their brains, I respect their traditions, I respect their spirit, and I want to learn from them, which is why when I teach, I don't focus so much on education, which is pumping information into someone. I focus more on educing. Look it up if you don't know what that is. EDUCE, which is to draw from them. So if I'm creating mutual respect, I want to learn as much as I possibly can about these kids, what goes on during the day, what happens in their life, what their passions are, what their visions are, as opposed to just being someone who wants to educate them by just going through the curriculum and not connecting on a human level with them. That's it.
Sorry, Ron. I was looking for my
All good.
mute button. And also, really great points about not waiting for respect, but giving respect and being in a headspace where you can do that. So let's get practical, Dr. B. Let's throw out some party favors here. What are some ways that we can implement that in the classroom, particularly when you're faced with a challenging behavior and then faced with this idea of being respectful? How do you make
So
that work?
that you just set that up beautifully, Rachel. We're gonna tackle both of those things. Like, what are you gonna do, and then what are you gonna do if? I'm going to preface this with two things. First of all, I got to call out Rosalina in our audience, who is a home visitor. And I want to make, and anybody else who's a home visitor, this is not just about classroom management. This is about interacting with human beings. So those of you who are going into homes, this is a beautiful opportunity to not only connect with children, but to support parents in ways that they can change the way they respond to their children, and maybe lighten the mood in the house a little bit too, because sometimes parents don't have these skills either, and it can be very difficult when you're working and raising young children. So this is not just classroom stuff. So let's talk about how we're going to define respect. And I'm going to give you a definition that has two parts. I'm going to tell you, and then I'll put it in the chat before we're done. But this is exactly what you can teach kids. They get it. First of all, there are three signs of respect when we're listening, and there are three signs of respect when we're speaking, when we're talking. The three signs of respect when we're listening are that your eyes are forward, your ears are listening, and you're sitting still. So it's eyes, ears, and body. That's how we're going to display respect when we're listening to another person. And that's not just for the kids. You will do the same thing. You're going to show them respect when they're talking, and everybody will learn how to show respect when listening. When speaking, respect is most evident through our face, our tone of our voice, and our words, using kind words. Again, it's when you are speaking to your children in different environments that you can display a kind tone, the words that you use, and your facial expressions while you use them. I talk a lot about this in Trust First, because sometimes we think words are the only thing that define our communication. And we might say something like, please sit down. And we think that's really very polite. But what we've really said is, please sit down. I've asked you 47 times, is the subtext there? And that is not respectful tone, even if the words themselves might sound respectful. So we have to think about tone of voice, facial expressions. Sometimes we can roll our eyes and not even mean to. We got to be aware of our face, because people are honed in on our faces, and they communicate more than our words do. And in communication, the rule of thumb is 70-30. About 30% of what you say matters, but it's 70% how you say it. So, hang on a second. I got a blurb here. I've got to turn that off. I don't know what that is. Okay, so those are your how. That's how you're going to define it. And this gets taught just like math or reading. You have to teach the 3 signs of respect, and you can model it. Have them role play a situation. What does it sound like if you ask with full respect to go to the bathroom, or to grab a toy, or to do something in the classroom, and model it? Here's the best way to teach this, though. This is my favorite way that adults can model the behavior they want to see with children. And that is, you are not a perfect human being. You are going to say something that'll come out in a way that you think, ooh, wish I had said that differently. But generally, we just ride right over it and move along because it's, what are you going to do? And instead, allow yourself to celebrate your mistake and learn from it and demonstrate it. So you might say something like, you're just tired. It's been a long day. I've asked you to sit down. Please sit down. And then you can catch yourself and you can say something like, whoa, 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 whoa. I want to try that again with more respect. Let me try that again. You may sit down now, Johnny, and show them the difference in your tone of voice, the words you choose, your body language. And over time, you will actually see children correct themselves. They get it. They learn this stuff very quickly, very easily, all from watching, not so much from what we tell them, but what we do. So the key here is to treat respect and what you expect in terms of behavior from a very concrete perspective. It isn't about being respectful in some undefined way that when you know it when you hear it. It's got to be something they understand and can demonstrate. It's about practicing that in role plays, by correcting yourself. And sometimes it's by asking kiddos to correct themselves. And here's how you're going to do that. This is important. So maybe you have a child who says something disrespectful. Maybe it's the tone of voice, maybe it's the words, whatever. You can stop and in a tone, facial expressions, and language, you can say something like, Johnny, you can say that with more respect. So what you are doing is giving them a redo. There's no sarcasm in my voice. There is no anger in my voice. There's no curtness in my voice. And it has to be sincere. So you might have to practice at home with your dog or your stuffed animals, because sometimes our go-to is sarcasm or exhaustion. You'll also notice that my facial expressions were not opposite of what I'm trying to do. And that, again, some of us have to practice that because we have some habits that we might have to break. And I want you to notice the most important thing about that sentence. I didn't say you can show respect when you say that. I said you can show more respect. That is a key piece of this lesson, because when we tell children to show us respect, what we're saying is they have none. And that's never the case. There's always something there. We just want them to improve. And anybody can get on the bus for improving. But when we're told that we're failures, we shut down and you're going to get resistance. So those are my keys to respect from our Trust First experience, where you define it for speaking, you define it for listening, you practice, and then you correct all the time. And always correcting is okay. Mistakes are where the new learning goes. So that's always a celebratory moment. It's not a time to punish or to feel deflated. It's okay. We're people, we make mistakes.
Fantastic. So I hope everyone can take that one to the bank. Give that one a shot in your classrooms tomorrow. Ron, your turn. Some practical strategies for building respect into our classrooms, particularly in the face of behaviors that challenge us.
Well, I believe to have respect for other people is to be open that they are different than you. Every human being has different opinions. Every human being has different things that they liked, different behaviors. And a lot of times we are programmed that if somebody does something different than what we think they should do, then they're not being respectful. Imagine having a conversation where you have a kid in front of you and you tell them the look at me when I'm talking to you because we've been programmed that eye contact is important to show respect. And all of a sudden the kid starts going like this. I have kids and I watch them with teachers that the teacher says, look at me when I'm talking to you. And this child immediately starts going like that. Of course, I'm cracking up in the corner because I think it's hysterical while the teacher is standing over them, getting more upset. Their face is getting red. But the challenge is that um, when these kids are, especially the neurodivergent ones, it's having an understanding about um, what they are and what their perspectives are. So if you want to be right, which is a lot of people are programmed to do that, like be right and get dopamine, you can look at that child and go, "Look at me when I'm talking to you," and then the brain, our brain, says words about the situation. So right now, real quick, if a child, and this is for everybody, put it in the chat or yell it out loud. If a child's not making eye contact with you, if a child's not looking at you in the eyes when you're talking to them, they're being what? What's the go-to? Usually I hear two different things. It's either the child's being this or the child's being that. And usually I hear the child's being rude or the child's being disrespectful. Now, if you just focus on being right and saying the child is being disrespectful, the child is being rude, what's happening is you're choosing win lose. You're choosing to be right instead of actually asking that child, hey, what does your family say about making eye contact with an adult? And you may actually, if you put yourself in their shoes, learn, well, my mom says don't make eye contact with an adult, look away from them, or that's being disrespectful. So, in the realm of respect, understanding that being respectful of another human being means also understanding that your brain is just designed to make up stories. And when your brain goes, the child is being disrespectful, the child is being rude, understand that's not what's happening in reality. See, what's happening in your brain is your brain's making up stories, your brain's being right, your brain sends a message to your body, you get a shot of dopamine. What's happening in reality is the child's not looking at you in the eyes because the child's not looking at you in the eyes. That's all that's happening. If you want to be respectful of that person, then play more in the world of reality as opposed to just being right in your head. There's so many things that we do when we're busy just focusing on ourselves where we're not showing respect back and forth to all these kids. You want to really have a multitude of respect in your classroom, understand that all your kids are different and that you may have the gift and the blessing of having a neurodivergent child in your class. If you have a kid that's ADHD like me or ODD or has all these skills and these gifts and they're around and they're processing all this information, when it's time to do an activity, don't just give this child or these couple of kids the same things that all the other kids are doing. If you know they have better skills, if they're quicker, if they're faster, if they're sharper, then be the person that allows these kids, let's say even Montessori style, to go and help out the other kids that are just the normal kids, the kids that are at par. And then it's an amazing world. The challenge is if you're not a person that's a leader or likes leaders or has leadership, your brain may sabotage you in getting in the way. If you're a person that loves that these kids step up and that they love to take charge and all that, then you're on that same level with them and you'll let them achieve more things and take on more leadership roles in your classroom. The point of all of this wrapping around is that to really connect with a human being is to understand that when your brain starts talking, you don't have to A, believe what it says, B, respond to those words. You can just get these are just words and thoughts. Let me find out what's going on in the other person's world so that we can create a win win. That to me is respect over just being right, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. I think we're learning a lot here about kind of reframing how we look at situations in order to put ourselves in a position to be able to show respect. So much of it is getting out of our own way.
Hmm.
Um, we have a few more minutes here, which never happens. So I'm very excited. I'm going to toss it back to Dr. B. And I want you to think about respect as being at the heart of the classroom. A lot of what we talk about here is how do you embed that before we get into those situations, right? So, is there any other words of wisdom you would give about how you can start planting those seeds when you're in a good space? Like, what are some things you can do so that once you get to that point where you're frustrated, you're like, wait a minute, I know that's not true. I know this is a good kid. I know there's a better way to deal with it than sit down.
Right, right. I think that Ron's point about needing to be correct, needing to be right, I call it control. I think teachers in general, I know I would fall under the label of control freak from a young age of liking to go in and orchestrate and do the things. And it took me a while to learn that that isn't the best way to lead a group, really, of anybody, but of children in particular, because it ends up being a personal thing. All of it becomes very personal. But when you let go of needing to be correct or right or control, as Ron was talking about, what ends up happening is really interesting. I think a lot of times people come to programs like this and they want to know what works. And their definition of works means I'm going to do something and all the kids are going to do exactly what I want them to do all the time. And that's the magic button. But that actually doesn't exist. And or if it does, we're not allowed to do it. It's not a safe environment. We would just get compliance through fear or something like that. We would never want to do that. What actually we're really looking for is creating classrooms that are so full of joy that keep us in our space of teaching, which is why we chose to do this. So that those things happen and it's okay. It's just part of the thing. I mean, would you ever lose your temper because a kiddo couldn't read a word? Because they hadn't yet figured out blends? No, you would just teach it again. And you'd get them to a point where they knew PL made PLA, right? You would never punish them or take it personally that they didn't learn it or think of it in a way that is negative. It would just be an opportunity for more learning. Unfortunately, we have created a system throughout our education system that doesn't marry behavior learning the same way that we teach academics. We think behavior is something we just should know how to do. And if you don't, then that's a problem. But when it comes to learning, we just teach again. We reteach, we come up with a new way to teach it, we put a kiddo in a different environment, we do all these other things. Just think of behavior the same way. It's all opportunities for teaching. And, when Ron was talking about the neurodiverse kiddo in your classroom, and in the chat, there were lots of comments about cultural differences, and eye contact is one that's sort of a commonly known thing. I want to go even further. And I want to say, we don't need a reason. You don't need to figure out if that kiddo comes from a different culture, is neurodiverse, or had a bad morning, or has a reason for the moment, right? We're looking for, if we can explain it away, it won't bother us as much. Just don't let it bother you at all, because it doesn't matter if there's a reason. It's just there for you to implement the skills you've learned in these 6 workshops, which if you've been to every one of these and you put all these party favors in your tool belt, you are good to go. You pull out a skill and you use it. And it's just the skill to get to where the classroom feels joyful, because in that joyful moment, you can learn. I want to tell you a true story I'll do one more minute, Rachel. This is true. I used to be a principal at a high school, and we had a teacher who kept like sending kids to my office and writing kids up for being disrespectful. They were being rude and they were laughing at her when she was giving them direction. And I thought, this is, first of all, weird. I don't know. Like, they were laughing. I needed to see what was going on. So I started to go into the classroom and pay attention. I looked at the kids she was talking about. I didn't know them well. And it turned out that none of them spoke English. They were all newcomers who were learning English. And when she would give them a directive, they didn't understand what she was saying. And their natural nervous response was to laugh, not ha ha at you. Like, have you ever been in a situation where you've been nervous and you laugh? It's the weirdest human response to something. You almost can't believe you're laughing. but it's because you don't know what else to do. Was exactly what was happening. And I felt horrible for those kids because from that, her negativity was obvious, even though they couldn't understand her words and they knew they weren't doing the right thing, but they couldn't figure out the right thing. Now I can explain that situation and get a lot of understanding from you, right? A lot of, oh my gosh, but let's not look for a reason. Let's just decide all kids have something and figure out a solution instead of trying to, if we can explain it away, it's okay. Nah, you don't need to explain it away. Kiddo doesn't want to sit on the rug and you're trying to do this. Stop, take a breath, figure it out. You want to build respect in your classroom. This actually isn't a one off. This is about building a respectful foundation and culture in your classroom that centers around trust. That's what Trust First is all about. And Ron's program is right aligned with that. That's why we work together. It's about people and relationships and building trust. And to be honest, the best case scenario is every classroom looks like that in your building. But if they don't, it's okay. You can create it in your space. It's okay. All right, that's my diatribe for the
Okay, I'm
ending
going to
here,
give
Rachel.
Ron we've got a few more minutes. And Ron, there was a question came in the chat, and I want to throw this at you because I think this is in your wheelhouse. How do we implement this for children who struggle providing what we feel is respectful? So if there's a kid, and Dr. B just kind of hit this, but I want to give you a shot at it too. If there's a kid who possesses language barriers, or if there's a kid who just really feels uncomfortable, how can you nurture them along?
Um, Sometimes asking a child what's going on with them just has the wall go up. Like when somebody goes to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and they look at you with the pen and paper and go, "Tell me about your life," and then everybody, you shut down. Um, I've learned to use something called projection, which is if something's happening in a child's life, and they're not able to explain what's going on, or you say, "Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that?" And they go, "Oh, I don't know," or like that. What I do is I create another child. So let's say I have a child named Joseph, and he is throwing fake fits. It's not that he's having an emotional experience, he's actually intentionally throwing a fake fit to get attention, or let's say he interrupts or whatever. What I would do is I would say to Joseph when I'm having a conversation and always sitting down eye level or I'd be below him, I would be asking, Joseph, I need your help. There's another boy in a different class that I teach. His name is Michael. He's got the same brown hair as you. He's got the same light up Spider Man shoes. And of course, then Joseph looks at his shoes. And what he does is he does this behavior and he does that behavior. And since you're three and he's three, you would have a better understanding about what to do. Why do you think this child does this? And then all of a sudden, you may have the floodgates open up and go, well, maybe he's feeling, maybe maybe Michael misses his mom, maybe Michael misses this. All that, so it's like you allow that child to express themselves, just like when guidance counselors use puppets to have somebody talk about their emotions instead of being stuck. Yeah, having that conversation and having the kid that you're working with come up with solutions. And by the way, too, I've also done this where I go, "Can you help me with this child?" And the kid's like, "Nope." And then the next day, they're like, "I was thinking about Michael's problem and maybe blah, 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 blah." And what happened was he went home, worked it out in his head because he didn't know how to ask for it. And then we were able to come to a situation where it's win win. Another thing that I want to throw out there as well when it comes to respect, I've noticed, I learned this from an organization called Time to Teach. It's a behavior system for K to 12. And they say, ask yourself three questions if you want to stop 50% of the disruptions in your classroom. And the three questions are this. Question number one, can I still teach? So if something's happening in the classroom and let's say one of the kids rolls over onto their stomach and they're looking at you like this during circle time, your brain might go, that kid's supposed to be sitting up straight, or that kid should be this way or should be that way. We should. We create expectations. Instead, you can just look at that kid and ask yourself, can I still teach? Yep. Next question, can he or she still learn? So if that kid's rolled over on their stomach and they're staring at you like this and their legs are kicking behind them, but they're focused on you, then you can still learn. I mean, they can still learn. Question number three, can everybody else still learn? If you're in a class of 20 kids and all the kids are paying attention to you, then everybody else can still learn. If all of a sudden two of the other kids see the one kid rolled on their belly and they roll over and they start rolling into each other, then the answer to question number three, can everyone else still learn? That's an absolute no. But most of the time, if you just real quick, something happens in your classroom and your brain, you feel that tension, you feel that trigger, and your brain's like, oh, like that. If you just ask yourself, can I still teach? Yeah. Can he still learn? Yeah. Can everyone else still learn? Yeah. Then in that 5 seconds of you asking yourself those questions, you will then realize you may have been the one that's been disrupting your own classroom 50% of the time just because your brain was telling you how things should be, as opposed to if you've been doing this in early childhood, how many years, no matter your lesson plans, no matter the curriculum, no matter this, no matter that, you walk in there and the day could be completely different with pure, loving, joyous chaos within 10 minutes. And one thing I always recommend when I do my workshops is stop being a teacher, start being a clown in your classrooms and see how everything shifts.
I love that so much. As all of this talk about clowning and puppeteering is right up my alley, Ron. So I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we just got started, but we're actually going to wrap up now and be respectful of all of your time. All of these webinars are available on NHSA's website, so feel free to go back and rewatch any one of them. Um, Share them out with people in your program, have conversations about them, and join us for classroom management. It is a fantastic series of courses. We offer them in the spring and in the fall. We still have some slots available for fall. We'll send that registration information out to you in our follow-up email. Would love to have you there to go deeper with Dr. B and our other instructors. And you also get access to Ron Schwally's behavior mastery course that he built for us too. So super exciting stuff there. This is the last one of this series for this year, but we will be back with more next year. So don't you worry. We also wanted to just highlight for you a few other things that are available for you. We have a webinar coming up called Messages That Motivate. That has been dropped in the chat for you. And then we have some instructional practice events coming up by our Smithsonian education partners. They'll be doing a webinar called Discussing Tough Topics with Young Children. That's coming up on April 24th. You won't want to miss that. And then we have our birthday party with the National Zoo coming up on May 16th. That is going to be joyous celebration. So what better way to enjoy teaching and being in the classroom with your kids than with a birthday party? So we hope you'll join us. Feel free to email me with any questions that you have going forward. And finally, your feedback is a gift to us. We're going to drop a survey link in the chat and it'll be in your follow-up email. We'd love to know what you thought, what else we could do for you. Have a great day, Head Start. Be a wonderful you. Thanks so much.